Julie, welcome.
Hello, everyone. So I read part 1 of the Path of Sri Ramana. Ah, um, and as I'm hearing you speak, I took pictures of various pages. And let's see, it says, remembrance of or attention to the mere feeling I. If one resorts uninterruptedly to self-remembrance, that is, remembrance of or attention to the mere feeling I, until one's attained self, that alone will be sufficient. So I'm just wondering where that fits in with the material version and the consciousness version and the ajata, and is it necessary to even wonder that, or just
No,
do it?
exactly. See, that kind of teaching, it doesn't matter. It's such a direct teaching. I think that's a quote from Who Am I? I think that what you've read is Sri Sadhu Om quoting Who Am I, which was written by Ramana Maharishi. And it's such a direct teaching, you don't get these confusions. You don't have to worry about what level the teaching is on.
Okay.
It works on all the levels. Ajatavada, you can't really teach. You can describe it, but you can't really practice it. You can do the practice in Shristi Dristi and Dristi Shristi or Vivartavada. But Ajatavada is the self. Is that okay, Julie? I don't want to digress too much, just because I'm really hoping to fit in Michael as well. But
okay,
because I feel that if I answer your question more fully, it's going to go into a whole different answer.
Okay.
Which is fine, and we can do that as well. But maybe not right now, if that's okay. Just out of courtesy of Michael.
Okay.
To Michael. But I do want to check if anybody, or Julie, yourself as well, if you have any questions about the basic teaching I was given in response to Sarah, just because it's such an important topic. Do you have any questions about that at all? But to what you just said, Julie, if you just follow that, that's it. Bhagavan doesn't usually go on about all these different levels of teaching. It just says, attend to the I am. Then what does it matter it doesn't matter what your view of the world is. It doesn't matter if you see it as real or an illusion. There's a text called, what's it called? Sri Ramana Paravidya Upanishad, which is a collection of Ramana's teachings. And right at the beginning, it explains how the world is unreal. Right? And then straight after, I hope I've got this right, straight after is explained how the world doesn't exist and the world is unreal. It says, even if you think the world is real, it doesn't matter. Just follow Bhagavan's teachings. Irrespective of if you think the world is real or not real, all that kind of stuff doesn't matter. Just attend to the self. This sentiment is also in Uladu Narpadu, the 40 verses on reality. Bhagavan says, you see these people, they're endlessly arguing. Oh, the world exists, and someone else, no, the world doesn't exist. The world is dualistic. Oh, no, the world is non-dualistic. Oh, consciousness is with objects. Oh, no, consciousness is without objects. All these arguments, yeah? And then Bhagavan says, instead of arguing is all about all these things, is the world illusion? Is it real? Blah, blah, blah. Just attend to the self. So if these teachings help you attend to the self, then we should pick them up and utilize them. If they mean we're getting into arguments in YouTube comment sections and on Facebook and with your friends and with your next door neighbor or with your spouse or whatever, Yeah, I was thinking of you, Sarah and Gordon. I know you have heated arguments over dinner, you know, about these sorts of things. Exactly. Then you're wasting your time. This is not good. This is not what the teachings are for. They're not to get into arguments with yourself or someone else. It's just what helps you be more peaceful, attend to the self. That's the purpose of teachings. That's it. So we don't need to know this teaching unless it's helpful to us. Anything else on that particular teaching?
Can I ask something very quickly about that?
Yeah.
I mean, you just said we could, so I don't know why I'm asking. Oh,
Oh,
no,
okay.
I'm not going to ask it. I'm not asking Michael. Go ahead, please.
Okay. Michael's gone. Sorry, Michael.
Demetrius, Jesus. My quick question was, Michael. Speaking of Michaels, another Michael Langford, in his very impactful, powerful, guided meditation, one of the few that he did on YouTube, it's 30 minutes. It's like attending to the true self now, and he's the one where he's like the aware, and he does say that I know you can argue that the awareness who woke up this morning is not the true self, but for now, he says, attend to be aware that you are aware, like, right now. And so, as a reminder for me personally, like I have this, is that I don't know. Be aware that you are aware, it says.
Yeah.
So
Whatever works for you.
Yeah. And
Exactly.
just the idea, I'm just pointing to the fact that he does say that awareness will expand. And I'm just trying to connect that.
Yes, no, this is it.
Okay.
Which teaching are the Shristi teachings bad? No, they're wonderful. They're wonderful teachings. The problem is if you get stuck in them. If you follow the teaching, attend to the self, attend to the I am, attend to the subject. That's all you need to do. If the mind starts getting caught up in these questions because you're reading this and reading that, or you're hearing this and you're hearing that, then I have to explain. And I do that, I want to explain. I have to explain. I gladly explain because these creates a lot of confusion. So is the self that which sees the world? Yes. The self is that which sees the world. That is the subject. It's called the subject. The subject means that which sees objects. Subject is only defined in reference to the objects. But if there are no objects, how can you call it a subject? Right? So in truth, the self is not the subject. From a Jatavada view, there is no subject, there is no object. That's a dyad. Do you remember dyads? Dyad means subject-object. All the dyads and triads disappear in the self, right? It says this in Uludunapadu. So you cannot call this, in truth, meaning a Jatavada, in truth, the self is not the subject. Because there is no subject-object. In the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, it says the self is pure consciousness. Right? Now, in the same way, subject, the word subject means that which is aware of objects. Subject is defined in relation to objects. Consciousness means you're conscious of something. right? That's what consciousness means. I'm conscious means I can see something. I can I can perceive something, right? So we call it pure consciousness. And the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad says, when you remove all the objects, you cannot even call it consciousness anymore, because it's pure consciousness, but it's not. There's nothing separate. There's nothing in it. There's no diversity. There's no objects. How can you even call that consciousness? And Shankara has written a commentary on these verses where it says that, explaining what I've just explained to you in more detail. I don't know if anyone's read, I've written a fairly lengthy blog post about how to realize a self according to the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. Has anyone read that by any chance? If you're interested, it's really worth reading. I'll try and find it and pop it in the chat. I mean, the value of this kind of thing is that the fact that it's in the Upanishads, if people are into this kind of teaching, it can show them the true teaching. So what I've done, I did an executive summary. I just did a summary at the beginning to explain what the whole text says, and then I've gone through it pretty much verse by verse. Chapter 2, section 4. There's a conversation between a husband and a wife. The husband is realized, self-realized, and the wife wants to attain self-realization. And so she goes to her husband, and her husband explains to her the teaching.
Still waiting for my wife to ask me.
Same here, by the way. Same here. It's a great thing for a marriage, by the way. If ever you want to tell your wife or husband that you're enlightened and you can enlighten them. I've tried it. Doesn't always go down so well. Yeah. But in the Upanishads, seem to work. I don't know how realistic these Upanishads are actually now, come to think of it. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. In Uladu Narpadu, 40 Verses of Reality, written by Ramana, he says that in the self, the dyads and there are no dyads and no triads. Dyads means subject-object, means seer, seen, hearer, heard, taster, taste, things like this. And the triads means things like knower, knowing, known, seer, seeing, seen. So some people say non-duality, there's no seer, which is the subject. There's no seen, which is the object. There's just seeing. Seeing. Do you see? There's just seeing without a seer, without the seeing. It's just one seeing. And Bhagavan says, no, this is also false. There's no triads. Triads are the seer, seeing, seeing. There's no seeing either. Most places, when people ask Bhagavan, what is it like to be a realized sage, a jnani? He says, you see everything as the self. Or you realize everything is one with you. This is what he often says. But you'll catch him sometimes say, in truth, the jnani doesn't see anything. But he doesn't say that to everybody he comes to. Because some people, that would literally scare the shit out of them. So, doesn't really want to say that to people. And they're not ready for it. Or they'll think, what's this guy on? What's this guy taking? Anita.
Is that because there is no one there to see anything?
No one there. Let's take the triad, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Triad means seer, seeing, seen. Yeah? You said, is it because there's no one there? That's the seer, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah? Oh gosh, I can't do this with my fingers. Let's do that finger. There we go. So if there's no seer, have you still got the seeing and the seen? So the reason that there is nothing seen is because there's no seer, there's no seeing, and there's no seen. There's no object, there's no subject, and there's no object, and there's no connection between the two, which is the verb or the process. Subject, verb, object. Subject, process, object. Hearer, hearing is the process, and the heard is the object which is being heard. And the hearing is the process that connects, or the movement or process that connects the subject with the object. You see how tricky these teachings are and how the distortions can creep in.
Mm.
And how not understanding levels of the teaching means that the teaching becomes misunderstood. This is why I am apologetic to Michael, even though he's not here, that I spent such a long time talking through this in the way I did. Because it's so easy to misunderstand, not understand what these teachings are saying. Especially when you're reading it in a book. And especially when like when you read the Vedanta scriptures, they're not systematic often. They're just outpourings, especially the Upanishads. Later on, you get more systematized teachings. But so you get different things said at different times, and someone else writes it down and jumbles all these different teaching statements together, but doesn't necessarily understand it themselves. The other thing that should help you with this is not able to be understood. It's inconceivable and unthinkable. That's what it said in the Mandukya Upanishad, verse 7. So you cannot understand this. It doesn't make sense to the mind. You have to realize it yourself. The last sentence of the Mandukya Upanishad, verse 7, it says, this is the self. This is Atman, and this has to be realized. The value of the teaching is to show you that as long as dyads or triads exist, there is still a sense of individuality. And suffering will continue. As long as there's a sense of individuality, which is a sense of limitation, suffering will continue. Why? Because actually what you want, what you're looking for is your true nature, what you really are, which is unlimited, unbounded. Now, in that verse that Sarah read from Sadhana Saram, it hinted at this, how our desire for objects is actually a perversion or a distortion of our own self-love. What we really long for is our own self. But because we take ourselves to be body-mind, this desire to be ourself gets distorted and perverted and becomes our desire for objects, because we look for happiness in objects, whereas really what we're looking for is happiness in ourselves. is like the person who screams and shouts and blames everyone else for all their problems. But really what they are really looking for is somebody to love and appreciate them. Yeah. Their symptom of wanting love and appreciation is to shout and scream and blame everybody else. It's a distortion of actually a very innocent desire to want to be loved and appreciated. You see, in the same way, we want to know ourselves. We want to be happy. We want to discover what we are, which is pure love, beauty, heaven. But instead, because we don't know, we don't see ourselves what we are. We take ourselves with body mind. We search for all these objects to make us happy. So desire for objects, also known as desire, is just a wrong turn of actually our own self-love. Self-love means self. Self is self-love. In the same Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, where the husband is teaching the wife about self-liberation, he also teaches her that the most important thing to you is yourself. And one of the things, is very famous verse where he says, more dear than your husband or more dear than your wife is yourself. More important, he means he's telling his wife, here, look here, listen, the most important thing to you is yourself. It's not me, it's not our kids, it's not your parents, it's not the world. You care most about yourself. Yourself is the thing that is most dear to you. He's telling his wife this. And it's written in the scripture. And yeah, I'm not sure, is it in the, I'm not sure if it's in the, yes, it is. I did include it in there. Yeah, it's verse 2.4.5. If you want to have a look. He goes through saying the self is the most dear thing, essentially. You care about yourself the most. You are essentially self-centered. You love yourself. The greatest love you have is for yourself. But he's talking about self as your true nature. It becomes distorted and perverted and becomes love for this body mind, because we think what we are is the body mind. But actually, what we long for is our own self. Because we think we're the body mind, we then start to want to protect it. And then we desire all these things to protect it and enhance it and prolong it, etc. But when we realize that's not what we really are, then all that distorted egoic design naturally falls away. So just to wrap up this topic, another way we can look at it is that when we start the spiritual journey, we have a conventional view of reality. We think we're a body mind living in a world. As we go through our spiritual journey, at some point, perhaps, we start to realize that, oh, we are not a body mind living in a world. The world is happening spontaneously. Or the world is happening spontaneously within our consciousness. Something like this. Most teachings stop there. Those are wonderful teachings. They are. They are spiritual teachings. Those are spiritual teachings. They are wonderful spiritual teachings. They will help many, many people. We shouldn't condescendingly look down on these teachings in any judgmental way. It is all God's doing. These are wonderful and wonderfully helpful teachings. And they, for many people, these teachings will help you. For many of you, these teachings will help you. That's what I'm trying to say. So we start off with a worldly view. You're a person living in a world. Then at some point, it might be like, oh, the world is just a happening that occurs by itself, or a happening in consciousness that occurs by itself. There's no one doing anything. It's just a movement without any individual, just an ocean of interdependence, like a wave affecting another wave on the ocean surface. There's no one doing anything with the waves. It's just the spontaneous movement of the ocean. That's life, right? Most teachings stop there. And then there can be a further teaching or further realization, which is liberation, which cannot be understood, which says actually there is only you. Not the body mind, not the world, only you. And there is no body, there is no mind, and there is no world. And nothing ever happened. Not really. Nothing even appeared to happen. Not even as an appearance. There's never been many Maya. How could there be Maya? Maya is a distortion. There's never been any distortion. So we go from body-mind based identity to a conceptual notion of being consciousness to realization of what you actually are, which is different to the idea I am pure consciousness, or I am a conscious being, or I am a spiritual being, which is still conceptual. It's on the level of the mind. It's a genuine realization which blows the whole thing apart. You don't actually need to know any of this stuff. All you need to do is what Julie said when she read out that passage, is just attend to the I am. Everything else, all the other teachings, are just to help you do that. That's all they are. They're just to help you do that. Attend to the self, attend to the I am. It's often the ego mind that doesn't allow you to do that. And so these other teachings are there to help the ego mind to allow you to do that. That's called purification. So, Julie, I'm very glad you read part 1. You'll love part 2, and you've got Sadhana Saram, which is written by the same person, which is kind of like a part 3. And it's a beautiful text. It summarizes part 3. I think it's the shortest of the 3 parts. And it summarizes all the teachings. And it goes a bit deeper on these questions, like the question Sarah asked. And so has everyone here read Sadhana Saram? Has anyone here, hands up who has read Sadhana Saram? Please read Sadhana Saram. It's a wonderful text. Wonderful, wonderful text. which is why it's on the recommended reading list. Let's bring Satsang to a close. Please stick around for after Satsang if you'd like to. Please stay on this call if you want to stay on and talk to other people in the group afterwards. May we have Bhagavan Ramana's grace with us. May we hold him dear in our hearts. May we turn towards him. He resides as I am within our very self. Draw his grace to you. Draw his grace to you by turning towards him. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. My love to you all. Thank you so much. I'll be back on Sunday, 3 o'clock. And next Thursday, 8 o'clock.